Welcome to Queer Conversations. Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, G of Vergy TV, and this is my guest, G. Winston James.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and you're welcome. And we're here. I'm here every Tuesday, 6 p.m. EST, sharing LGBTQ stories. And G, would you like me to refer to you as G?
G or G2 is
Or
fine.
G2, because we don't want to confuse people, because I go by G, as you probably know, and he goes by G. So I'm going to be G and he'll be G2, because we're both Jamaican.
Yes.
I don't know, people might even mix us up.
Yeah, we look
A little bit alike, right? Yeah. So you're a little more handsome and a little more pretty.
Okay. Or
But yeah.
I can't be pretty.
Okay, you want to do pretty and I'll do handsome? What's
Yeah,
straight?
yeah.
Okay, so he's a little more pretty and I'm a little more handsome. Thank you. I'll definitely take that. So we want you to please share this video. Please ask questions. Please comment and join our conversation. So we're going to start off with that G is from what I'm going to say is probably the best country in the world.
I'd agree.
You agree?
Jamaica.
Jamaica. And let's talk a little bit about your sense of things as being a Jamaican. And do you want to say Jamaican and gay, or is it Jamaican?
I'll say Jamaican and gay, since I think there's a lot of discussion about how Jamaica is such a homophobic country, so I think it's important for us to identify also as gay.
Yes.
But as we were saying, as I was telling you earlier, I was born in Jamaica, but my parents moved to the United States when I was only 3. So there's sort of this duality between being Jamaican born and being American raised.
Okay.
But I feel like having been raised in a Jamaican household in Paterson, New Jersey, with actually a lot of Jamaicans around in Paterson, I felt that Jamaican upbringing, though I did miss the sort of being raised in Jamaica that I think would have made my life perhaps a bit more special.
So, so you're raised. Do you have a memory of Jamaica before leaving?
I have only vague memories of Jamaica and stories that my parents have told me.
Stories.
Like I've been told that I used to walk around with a Bible trying to preach to people.
Wow.
When I was 3 years old.
3.
And I believe it.
Pastor James.
Yes.
Welcome. Hey, Joanne. Thanks for joining us. She says, hey, G and guests. Thanks for joining. So now, as somebody who at some point, we could talk a little bit about this, your coming out story, like when did you realize that you were different or gay, and how did it impact you as somebody from a Jamaican culture?
Well, excuse me, I've always known that I was different. I didn't have the language to define that difference. So when I was a little kid, I was often curious about men.
Okay.
So back then we had the keyholes that you actually stuck a big sort of skeleton key into.
Okay.
So there were times when I was peeping through keyholes to try to get a look at men, or hiding under beds and things like that. So I was always curious.
Interesting.
And when I was, 5, 4, I was curious about my genitalia.
Okay.
So I think I had erections then, and I told myself that I was a magician, that I was magical, that no one else could do what I was able to do.
You're like, look what I do with this thing. Yeah.
Now, in terms of I had a lot of experiences in my youth with older men, I guess taking advantage of me as a young gay person, or as a young, perhaps, I don't know whether I was feminine or not, but somehow other men knew that I was, that I was vulnerable to them. And I didn't necessarily mind those experiences at the time. It's only as an adult that I look back.
You look back and say, wow, I was too young.
Yeah, I was too young.
You were like 15, 16?
Oh, even younger than that.
Wow.
So that was abuse, but it didn't feel that way to me, because I've always been a curious child, and I think that curiosity was taken advantage of. Now, coming to accept my sexuality in a Jamaican household was tricky.
I can imagine.
One day after college, I'd gotten into a car accident, and when I called my father, he didn't ask how I was, he asked how the car was, since it was his car. And then I heard from my sister that my father had asked her whether I was gay, and he had somehow gotten a hold of a lesbian friend of mine in New York's telephone number. So he had called her to ask her if she was my girlfriend, and of course, she said, no, we're just friends. So I went to my father and I said, I've heard that you're asking everyone else but me about my sexuality.
Look at that.
But you should be asking me. And he said, you might be a faggot. And I said, yeah, I might be a faggot, But that would not be any of your business.
Wow.
At which point, my father stormed into the kitchen, reached into the kitchen sink. I presume for a knife. I ran into my sister's room and locked the door. My father ran into the basement to his storage room to get a hammer to break down the door.
Oh, wow.
And while he was downstairs, I left the house, and that's the day that I moved out from my parents' house. And actually, I came back the next day to pack my things, and my father came home. And he gave me the sort of Jamaican version of an apology, which was, at least nobody got hurt.
Oh, wow.
And I told him, I said, I can't live in a house with someone with whom I can have a disagreement, and that person then wants to kill me based on that disagreement.
No, scary. Oh, wow. And how is it now for your family? Like, did it evolve into something more accepting? Is it really the question I'm asking?
Absolutely. I've never actually had the conversation with my parents about my sexuality, but I've always brought the men who I cared about home.
Okay, good.
So at the holidays, actually at one point I was dating someone who was taking care of his 2-year-old sister.
Okay.
So at Thanksgiving, I came home with my boyfriend and a little baby in a stroller.
Wow.
And my Jamaican cousins were there. And we got lots of looks, but no one really said anything because we were in my parents' house. And at this point, my parents, I don't know that they know I'm married, but they know who my husband is.
So you're married to a man.
And they ask about him all the time. He's over at the house as
How long have you been married?
We've been married for 3 years.
Okay,
and
congratulations. That's
we've been
great.
Together for 10.
Wow, that is great. And thank you everybody for joining Carlene every week. She's in Jamaica.
Hi, Carlene.
Yes. Jasmine, thanks for joining. Thank you everyone for joining. Please share the video. Please ask questions. G2 is, we're saying G and G2 so you don't confuse us today. So G2 is an author, a writer, editor, essayist, and he's going to be reading his poetry. He's a poet, some of his poetry at Watch Your Elephant opening this Saturday. So let's talk a little bit about how do you start writing and what kind of literature, like what drew you to writing and when?
Well, I've been writing for as long as I can remember. Actually, I recall a teacher writing in my report card in 2nd grade, writing to my parents that their son wrote beautiful poetry.
Oh, look at that.
And I'm sure it was bad poetry, but
no, I'm not sure.
But beautiful poetry is what they said that I wrote. And in high school, I won a statewide poetry competition, a poem about racism. I wish that everyone had been created gray as opposed to black and white and all these other colors.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I don't really follow that idea anymore, but as a child, I thought that would have reduced strife a bit. And I think my poetry has been my escape, because I've always felt like an outsider. And I thought for a while that outsiderness was because of my homosexuality. Excuse me, just a second.
That's fine. You can get your drink. Thank you for joining. Hey, Rosario. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining. Linda's taking a sip here.
Yes. Sorry about that. So yes, for a while I thought that sense of being outsider was because I was gay. But I realized as I've gotten older that I'm just different.
Right.
I'm this black kid who grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, the 3rd largest city in New Jersey, and I did bird watching.
Yeah. Was it a predominantly white city?
No,
not at all?
No,
okay.
Actually. In fact, now Paterson is mostly Latino.
Okay.
It was very mixed even then. But my interests were bird watching and walking around to people's gardens and taking cuttings of their plants and rooting them, which is not what was expected of a young black kid. So my friends, I think people thought I was a little strange, and perhaps I was for that time and place. So my poetry was a way for me to express myself and to get to know myself a bit better. And in fact, if I were being honest, I think I was a pretty sad child. Probably somewhere around 13, I did, I wanted to die. I wanted to kill myself. And I attempted in a way, but it didn't work out. And my girlfriend at the time comforted me, and I realized, there's really no good reason to die. So now
a lot of people, suffer, and
And nowadays I don't quite understand what it was that drove me to no longer want to exist. In fact,
were you thinking about being gay at that time? Was that something a conflict for you?
I was too philosophical, I think. I told myself that life was just this series of sort of questions and answers and doors that you open, and it was this process that just never ended. You'd open one door and you still had another 10 doors to choose from, and it all seemed sort of exhausting to me.
Imagine at 13 that you already felt exhausted.
Yeah, people when I moved to New York and found a group called GMAD, Gay Men of African Descent, I remember one of the elders telling me, you're too young to be jaded. And that phrase has stuck with me, actually.
So G has a couple books here, and let's pull these books.
Sure.
And okay, tell me which one you want to start with, because look at this. He has a lot of published books, and I want to say congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I also write, and I have several articles published, but I haven't published my first book. And so when I get to hold these for you, I'm like, come on, G. If G2 is doing it, you could definitely do it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, talk a little bit about which one do you want to start with to tell me?
I guess again, I've been writing for a long time, and the first publishers to publish me were gay publishers.
Okay.
And I found a group in New York called Other Countries. Not that I found, but I found a group called Other Countries that was a group of black gay writers in the 80s who I think in many ways were writing to save their lives because many of them were HIV infected, and at that point HIV was indeed a death sentence.
Right.
So I think many of those writers were trying to tell their stories to bear witness to their having existed.
Right.
So it was important for me to be a part of that group and to not only develop my writing, but also develop my sense of self. So Lyric is my first collection of poetry, which I worked on for years.
What's years? How long?
More than 10.
Wow. So first book, 10 years to write it.
And to be quite honest, if I revisit the book from time to time.
Is this you here?
No, actually, that's a photo taken in a schoolhouse in Jamaica.
Okay, but you're not in the photo.
But I did feel like I was.
Yeah, I felt like that was you.
Yes.
So this is Lyric Poems Along a Broken Road, selected poems by G. Winston James. And can people get this book?
They would have to get that book from me. It's not available on Amazon, but it is available on my website, which is gwinstonjames.com.
Okay, and we have Nikki Lopez helping us in the background, so she'll put the link there, gwinstonjames.com, if you want to get this book. So
and as I was saying, I never stopped writing. So when I pick this book up now, there are things that I would change if I could. Yeah. But it's important, I think. It speaks to who you were then. Absolutely. Yes. It's important to birth your baby. The Damaged Good was my second collection of poetry.
Poems around love.
And I made a real effort with this book to be less sentimental than I was with Lyric. So I talk a lot about desire and about the sort of sex that I found in New York City at that time, as well as the sort of connected damage around HIV and AIDS that was happening. So it's not, there are love poems in there, but the subtitle is Poems Around Love. I think that love and desire can be complicated, can be dangerous, can be sad at times.
Yes, of course.
So that's what that book is about. And Shaming the Devil is my most recent book. It's actually a collection of short stories, and probably the book that I'm most proud of. And as you'll see on Saturday when I read it at What's Your Elephant, I'm a very honest writer, and I like to get to the heart of things that people don't necessarily want to discuss. So the extended title of this would be, of course, To Tell the Truth and Shame the Devil. But I just titled the book Shaming the Devil. There are 13, I would say, somewhat hard-hitting stories about, again, around desire and personhood, which is, to me, one of the most important things for us to focus on. I think a lot of times we focus on politics and what's going on in the community without necessarily focusing on who we are as individuals and making sure that our individuality is not overly impacted by the society around us.
I'm going to cut you for a second because I'm like, where do you find the time to go on writing? Because I think that's one of the challenges, well, not I think, that's one of the challenges I face in terms of writing my memoirs. And I've chunked out time and I'm writing it, but it's like I have so many other things that I'm doing, so to focus in, it's really hard. But how do you have, so let me ask you this. What's your advice to people, I know I'm not the only person, people who are working on writing, whether it's their memoirs, a book of poetry, whatever they're writing. What's your advice to how to get it done?
My ex, Ron Brown, used to tell me, just do your work. It's a rather simple thing, but that's the truth. Just do your work at first without considering what other people are going to think about it.
Yeah.
But once you approach publication, though, I think it's important to revisit your work and make sure that you have given it your all, that you have said what you wanted to say, and that you've said it in the ways in which you want to say it, because you can't take it back. I mean, you can take back an individual book, but once people have bought it, once it's out there on the internet, that thing
it's
is no longer
yours.
In your control.
Right, it's now for the world. And let me greet everybody who's joined. Thank you for joining us. So Unique is also joining. Carice.
Hello.
But thank you so much for joining. Here with G. Winston James. He's Jamaican, he's gay, he's a writer, and he's going to be performing some of his work at the Watch Your Elephant show this Saturday at 1310 Gallery. That's highly anticipated 10th annual show for Nikki Lopez, who's actually right here in the background. Yep. She's going to be going live later on today at 8:30 on her station. These are stations on our channel, our page. So Nikki, you could put the link there to tell people to tune in for you today at 8:30. So we just went through 3 books that Glenn has published, and he has 2 more he's going to talk to us about. And
I mentioned earlier the writers group Other Countries, and Other Countries was a men's group since its inception. But I always felt like the group was missing something. So it was a black gay men's group. I didn't feel like we were missing, the voices of white men or the voices of Latin men. I thought we were missing the voices of women.
Okay.
So quite often, black women. So quite often I would try to get the group to let women
come in.
And there was a great deal of resistance to that idea. And I understand on some level, because I do believe in safe space. But what I was able to do is, as co-editor of Voices Rising, co-editor, to make this Other Countries' first co-ed book.
Wonderful.
So this is I can't even tell you how many stories and poems are in here, but by both by both black men and women. And it's really a wonderful book. Very hard to get a hold of at this point. The only 2 people who have copies are Kevin Magruder, who can be found on Facebook, and also Sir Rodney Sir, who's also on Facebook. But those are the only 2 individuals that have copies to be sold. And
Spirited. What's Spirited?
And following on with that, I had put out a call for submissions many years ago of essays affirming LGBT identity. I didn't get that many essays at first, and it turns out that there was a lesbian who had also put out a similar call. And the 2 of us got together, and we joined forces with Lisa Moore, and we collected essays from African American, once again, lesbians and gay men. And those essays are all around the idea of affirming who we are as LGBT people in the face of our religion or spirituality. Like for myself, I don't consider myself religious, but I do consider myself highly spiritual. So my essay in this book is actually around community and making sure that I and you are safe as individual beings within a larger community. And Spirited has been an important book, I think, for a lot of people.
Okay, I'd like to read some of these books.
Oh, absolutely.
These are great. So some of these you can get on Amazon, right?
Well, Spirited is available on Amazon, but I prefer that people buy it through the Redbone Press website, which I think is redbonepress.com.
Okay.
Rather keep the money.
Yeah, keep the money
in our
community, which is always a challenge. So,
and again, my books are available at gwinstonjames.com.
Okay, Nikki has put that in. So if you have any questions, please ask questions. And I appreciate everybody who's joining the show. I saw you first read your poetry just about a month ago, not even, maybe 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, not that long.
And I was moved by both, but one in particular really struck me. I don't know if you're going to be performing that on Saturday.
I will.
Good, thank you. I mean, I felt, when I say struck me, meaning just goosebumps, emotional, and pride, So I talk a lot about, so we're both Jamaican, and so most of us are going to have challenges with being ourselves in terms of being gay and acceptance. So I had a lot of challenges. So when I hear your very affirming poem, it's really beautiful. So I look forward to that.
And I think one thing that people see when they hear me read, and perhaps when they sit and read my work by themselves, I don't know because I'm not there with people, but I'm a very emotional writer.
I felt it.
So there are a few pieces of mine that even today, 20 years later, I have trouble getting through without breaking up myself.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I could feel it. I felt it in your voice. And I feel it's a part of your performance it's real. And we feel it. I felt emotional when you're doing it. I was standing in the back of this room, and the room was just completely still with you. Your voice trembled, and I just felt that. So just keep being yourself and sharing that, because it's really powerful.
And for me, that's one of this sort of sense of authenticity is important to me, because I don't want to ever come off as a writer who is pretending to be something or pretending to feel something. Which is why I don't perhaps write as often as I could.
I really feel it.
Yeah,
but I'm going to tell you, this is a lot of writing. When you say you don't write as often as you could,
but you
have 5 books here.
But I've only gone through half my life, so I presume that there's more to go. But I'm not sure.
Have you? And you haven't written like your memoirs? Do you see yourself writing something like that?
I will say this. I will say that Shaming the Devil is sort of my fictionalized.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's all.
And that's the one of short stories.
That's the short stories, right?
Yeah.
Though actually, there's a lot of me in the poems as well.
Okay.
And I was
talking.
I was talking to a friend of mine, my best friend. He's also an artist, about my earlier poetry and saying, I'm not sure how I feel about those books anymore, because they're now X number of years old. And he was saying, but those books are important documents in terms of history, in terms of where the gay community was at a certain point in time, not just where you were, but where a number of people were at a certain point in time. And I sat down and I reread my second book of poetry, and I liked it.
Nice.
And I thought to myself, okay, this work is valuable, and I'm glad that I published this book.
Wonderful, congratulations!
I
love that you did it, and I know that feeling, kind of like you want to judge yourself.
But you can't help.
It's natural, and I think that's part of what makes us pause with writing. When you say you just have to write, is that we judge ourselves with like, is this good enough? Is this good enough? Is this good enough? And I write like a lot of articles, and when I write that, I feel more like I can just get that done. It's an article, but a book, it's like the Bible. It's like it has to me like this the highest standard. Compared to an article that you write, and
And the good thing I think about a personal project like that is that there's no real deadline. There's not some external force that's placing a deadline on you.
Yeah,
it's done when you finish it. It's done when you feel that it's done.
When you feel it's done. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit for people who we've mentioned a few times. Glenn is going to be at the What's Your Elephant show. How are we in time, Nikki? We have no idea here.
We've got like 8 minutes.
Okay, 8 minutes. Great. This is David Muir watching.
Hello, David.
Yeah, so meet G2.
So he says,
he's loved your work. So he looked through your pieces of Jamaica. So we're using David Muir's studio here, and he's in Honduras. He's traveling. Thanks for letting us continue to use your place. So yes, we have a great conversation about G as a writer and poet and essayist, and he's going to be reading his poetry this Saturday. So I want to talk a little bit about What's Your Elephant. So Nikki Lopez is an artist and curator, and this is her 10th annual show, and this is the 5th time she's doing this show, the What's Your Elephant, and sharing taboo topics, unspoken topics. She has, I believe, is it 18 artists in the show? 18 artists. I won't attempt to name all of them. Thank you, enough love. Yeah, thank you. I see Fallon is joined, so thank you. She has 18 artists. And G's a part of the team. I love that you came on board probably like a month ago.
Yeah, about
and that. you came on board to support the everything. It seems like which is wonderful. So what to expect? It starts at 6, and you should come about 6 something, and performances start at 7. We're gonna have Winston James. We're gonna have it's hosted by Flo Diva, and we're gonna have Inez. What's Inez's last name? Barlatier. I don't know my French really hard. We're gonna have Venus Rising, singers. Now I've started, and I'm co-producing the actual performances. So I have it all in my head. But we're gonna have dynamic. May Rain is gonna be performing, right? So we have poetry, dance. We have music. We're gonna have. So it's gonna be a wonderful evening. So come on out. There's no cost. We have. We're gonna have food by Nadine Catering. That's always good food. So that is this Saturday here in Fort Lauderdale. If you can get here, get here. Did I miss anything with that?
No, that's our community sponsors.
Okay.
Stonewall.
Okay, and Stonewall's gonna have installation here as well, right? So Stonewall Gallery It's going to have installation here in addition to all of the artists. And I know that Community Foundation of Broward and Broward Cultural Division, who also supports my event, Thou Woman. So we got to big them up. So Nikki has, and the show has great support. So she's going to be going live later and talking about the show as well. Yep. So if anybody has any questions, please ask us some questions. Anybody? Is there an entrance fee? Oh, I just answered that. So it's free. It's free 99. We do ask you to register at Eventbrite. We really want everybody to register. Is the link there? Mm-hmm. The link is here in this conversation. Please register. I say come between 6 and 7. I think it's going to be really crowded. This is so funny. Everything I ask, I say it, and then David asks the question. Right. So yes, it starts at 6 p.m. Performance is about 7. We have some stuff happening before 7 that's going to be nice. So people should come, I think, come on time. So it's free. There is parking available, but the overflow parking is going to be $5 a person. It's at a local church. You have to get that information out. And there will be drinks on sale, but there'll be complimentary food. And it's just always lovely. So I started Thou Art Woman, which is my LGBTQ women event, at this event called What's Your Elephant? That was 2014. And we had several collaborative shows, and it's just really grown a lot and wonderfully. I'm going to say it's going to be packed.
Good.
It's going to be packed. So let me ask you this. What's your elephant?
My God. I actually have a lot of elephants.
Share a couple that you feel. This is live Facebook. Just like your book that you published, you can't take this away.
This one of the things that I think about a lot in terms of gay people. I think that we often allow our sexual choices to become defining of who we are, when in fact we're much more than that. So I think that I've made the mistake in the past of letting sex guide my life much more so than I ought to have. So for me, sort of sex and intimacy has birthed many an elephant that I've had to corral.
Yeah, I actually relate to that. So that's a great point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good elephant.
Yes, and I mean, so I'm gonna say that as the larger elephant. In fact, one of the poems that I'll read on Saturday begins with, I used to have sex with my sister's boyfriends, not because they were magical, but because they were men. Oh, wow. And so, I mean, there's a lot there to sort of unpack. And happily, I spend a lot of time being introspective, so I have already unpacked it for myself. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I think my writing and my reading is more to make people feel like they're not alone. We're all unique creatures, none of us perfect, and in fact, our imperfection, I think, makes us all the more special.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing. And I would have nearly asked you to read, but since you're reading Saturday, I want people to be just come on out to get that performance.
Please do come out.
Come on Saturday. And so I close with what's called Queer Conversation closing questions. Just answer pretty quickly, no deep thought. Okay. And I believe we're wrapping up. So, what inspires you?
Life.
Wonderful.
And truth.
Life and truth. What makes you laugh?
Good question. Funny things. I mean, and many things are not funny. So when they're truly funny, I will laugh. But I'm a fairly serious person, as you.
Okay, I can feel. I feel your kind of seriousness. What's sexy?
Imperfection is sexy.
Well,
like I find that scar that you may not notice. I find that much more sexy than a perfect person. Okay.
Imperfection. I love the answers to particularly that question, to see how people view and feel sexy to them. Mm-hmm. And then for my last question is, what's so great about being gay?
That's actually a far deeper question.
Okay. This is a quick answer.
Yeah, all right. So my quick answer is that we are a minority. Okay. And I think that there is a need for strength when one is a minority. But there's a lot more to examine there, I think, around what it means to be gay, which is what that poem asks the question of what does it mean to be gay?
What does it mean?
So my quick answer is that we're a minority and have to struggle and therefore develop strength.
Okay, I like that a lot. Well, G. Winston James, poet, author, essayist, has several books here published, inspiring, great work. Coming out to see him this Saturday, and go to his website and purchase whatever he has that you're interested in buying. I'd like to get a couple of your books. I'd like to get them signed too. I really like to have a small collection of signed published books that I like to add into. And thank you for joining us, everybody. Join me every Tuesday, 6 p.m. EST, right here on Verity TV. Please like this page. Please like this page. You know, you're watching the video, like it, and keep joining us. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, G, too.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.